Coming up, a full look at the Wild West inside the Magic Kingdom. Disney presents Beyond the Kingdoms. Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's main show of Beyond the Kingdoms. I'm your host David, and today I'm continuing the Exploring Magic Kingdom series. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and click on the bell icon so that you never miss an episode. But let's strap on tight and head into the time of cowboys and prospectors in the Old West. Frontierland is an exciting corner of the Magic Kingdom. It boasts not one, but two mountains where guests can take an exciting thrill ride down a 52-foot waterfall or hop aboard a runaway mine train into a cursed mountain range. But at the same time, Frontierland offers some relaxing views of scenic beauty at the park's secluded island retreat. The 19th century western town is home to a few interesting shops, an old-fashioned saloon, and a music hall, featuring some friendly bears singing classic country tunes. All in all, Frontierland features 4 attractions, 4 shopping locations, and 3 dining choices. Last week, I mentioned Adventureland's impressive range of architectural styles in that the land features 4 different corners of the globe in one. Now, while Frontierland is very specific to a single region of America in the 1800s, this area of Magic Kingdom features an impressive timeline of America's history. To appreciate Frontierland's design, you have to take a big step back and look at both this land and the adjacent Liberty Square as well. If you stand anywhere in the pathway between these two lands, parallel to the rivers of America, you'll notice that America's architectural history is laid out in front of you. It starts with the Gothic style of the Haunted Mansion, inspired by stately homes found in New England in the 1700s. The country's colonial period is elaborated more throughout Liberty Square, which is inspired by different patriotic landmarks found in Philadelphia. And the story continues west into Frontierland, depicting America's western expansion into unknown territories. In reality, Frontierland represents everything from Mark Twain's mighty Mississippi to the impressive natural beauty of the American Southwest. Like other lands in the Magic Kingdom, Frontierland not only offers great rides, but also a nostalgic trip back to simpler times. The best break from the crowds at Magic Kingdom is on Tom Sawyer Island, which is inspired by Mark Twain's beloved novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Like the Swiss Family Treehouse, this attraction is a simple walkthrough experience, featuring some iconic landmarks from Mark Twain's classic book. But, unlike the treehouse, this island can be discovered in a variety of different ways. And it's a fun maze through the island's dense forest and nearby fort. One location in particular that I love visiting is Aunt Polly's. Once upon a time, this dockside porch served up a small selection of food and drinks. Now it's nothing more than a large seating area, but it's a great way to sit and relax looking onto the rivers of America. Now, fans of the book may recall that Aunt Polly was known for punishing Tom Sawyer because he skipped school, so she ordered him to whitewash her fence, a detail that you can clearly see on the path to Aunt Polly's here at Magic Kingdom. But if you're really looking for some old school adventure, take a trip into one of the caves here on the island. One is clearly inspired by the scene in McDougal's cave, where Tom and Becky get lost and encounter the evil Injun Joe. And another is the Mystery Mine, home to perhaps the best hidden Mickey in all of the park, the jeweled hidden Goofy. Other notable landmarks include Potter's Mill, loosely inspired by the silly symphony short The Old Mill, and the Barrel Bridge by Poor Old Joe's Shack. But perhaps the best dedication to Mark Twain himself is at the second island, at Fort Langhorne, This terrific fort is perfect for the old school Disney fan, or someone simply interested in finding some unspoiled views of Thunder Mountain. The fort itself is named after Samuel Langhorne Clemens, aka Mark Twain. He used the latter as one of his pen names. And the fort is equipped with a small stable, a blacksmith, and Disney's least crowded bathroom. And here's a fun little tidbit. While the walkthrough attraction was first created at Disneyland in 1956, and later here at the Magic Kingdom in the 70s, it was never inspired by a Disney film. In fact, Disney never produced a film on Twain's books until the mid-1990s. However, there is a well-received adaptation of Tom Sawyer that came out in 1973, coincidentally around the same time as the Magic Kingdom opening. The film was produced by Reader's Digest, and the musical was written by the beloved Sherman Brothers and scored by legendary composer John Williams. So even though Disney's attraction is not tied to the film, there is still a movie adaptation of the book created by some great Disney legends. To get to Tom Sawyer Island, simply board one of the rafts in between Splash and Thunder Mountain. The island is usually open from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And as you can imagine, this island involves a bit of walking, stairs, and be warned, those fun caves I mentioned can be extremely dark and filled with very tight and closed corners. It may not be as exciting as Splash Mountain, but Tom Sawyer Island is the perfect retreat from the busy crowds at the Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom is filled with some of the best work by Disney Imagineers. And some artists have left their specific style and signature in smaller details throughout the park. And in some instances, I mean that literally. Case in point, Tony Baxter, who is best known for developing great attractions like Splash Mountain and the Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland, and the original Journey into Imagination ride at EPCOT. But his most notable work is without a doubt Big Thunder Mountain. In fact, he loved it so much that some say he clearly embedded his initials into the ride's main logo. But Baxter's story starts at Disneyland. In fact, he began his career at Disney scooping up ice cream on Main Street. And while completing his degree in theater design at the University of California, Long Beach, he came up with several ideas for attractions at Disneyland, including a Mary Poppins ride that was never built. But his first major project after graduation was Big Thunder. And his idea for a runaway mine train was actually inspired by Marc Davis's Western River expedition for the Magic Kingdom. Originally, Davis had come up with an elaborate pavilion that would be located in the northwest corner of the park, and it would house 4 different attractions. The anchor being an elaborate, slow-moving boat ride. It would have started with quiet prairie scenes filled with audio animatronic animals, and later travel through a town where guests would witness cowboys and bandits fighting each other, a bank robbery, and even a saloon, among other things. But the Western River expedition didn't stop there. It was also to include a log flume, a mine train ride, and a walking trail. But 2 things put a stop to Davis's idea. First of all, guests were stunned at the absence of a Pirates ride at the Florida park. Therefore, shortly after Magic Kingdom opened, a new version of Pirates was constructed, stalling the Western River Expedition project. On top of that, the elaborate show building that would have housed 4 interweaving attractions would be Disney's largest and most expensive project yet. So it was scratched. But then entered Tony Baxter, who decided, instead of scrapping the whole idea, saw an opportunity to still construct a runaway mine train ride at the very least. Thus, the idea for Big Thunder Mountain was born in the mid-1970s, and it first opened in 1979 at Disneyland, and then a year later here in Florida. From there, Baxter's relationship with Frontierland would continue when he came up with the idea for Splash Mountain a decade later. Baxter envisioned a log flume ride inspired by the now controversial film Song of the South. When he heard that the America Sings animatronic show was possibly going to be retired he cleverly came up with the idea of repurposing many of the characters for his beloved Splash Mountain, which was then called Zippity-Dee River Run. So in many ways, Baxter found an economical way to execute Davis's bare-bones idea for the Western River expedition, but with his own twist. He represented a new breed of Imagineers who would introduce thrill rides to the parks, but still tell elaborate stories filled with classic Disney details. But like many lands of the Magic Kingdom, Frontierland is not all about tales of the Old West. It's also inspired by real landmarks, and in this case, natural beauty found in the deserts of the American Southwest. Florida's Thunder Mountain is said to be inspired by the stunning rock formations in Monument Valley, near the four corners of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. In fact, the tallest point of Thunder Mountain is strikingly similar to what is called the Totem Pole. The Monument Valley Navajo Tribal Park has been protected and overlooked by the Navajo Parks and Recreation Department since 1958. The park stretches an astonishing 92,000 acres, and it's probably the most iconic image representing the Wild West of America. Dozens of Hollywood films have shot scenes here, from John Ford's 1939 film Stagecoach, starring John Wayne, to Universal's Back to the Future Part 3, where Doc Brown and Marty first experiment on trying to get the DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour with the help of some horses. One cannot deny the stunning natural beauty of this park, millions of years in the making. And believe it or not, Thunder Mountain is not the only tribute to Monument Valley. In fact, if you take a ride on SOARIN at EPCOT, you'll get a breathtaking view of this park next to some colorful hot air balloons. Let's look at some of the more practical details here in Frontierland. While this land packs some great rides, it seriously lacks in entertainment. Currently, this land offers 0 character meet and greets. In the past, Woody and Jessie would meet guests near the exit of Splash Mountain. But ever since the opening of Toy Story Land, this has been scrapped. However, there is still a small chance you'll see some characters in this land. While not officially listed on the My Disney Experience app or the Times Guide, you sometimes might encounter the Frontierland HOE-DOWN, right across the entrance to Country Bear Jamboree. This is basically a Western-style dance party, featuring some appropriate characters from the land. It is unclear if this will remain in the coming months, since there are wider cutbacks taking place throughout Disney World Entertainment, but if it is running, it's usually between 4 and 6 p.m. If in doubt, ask a nearby cast member for more details. But I guess a thematically appropriate form of entertainment for this land is the Frontierland Shootin' Gallery. This is actually inspired by the Boot Hill Cemetery found in Tombstone, Arizona. Back in the 1800s, cemeteries like this could be found dotted throughout the region, and the name Boot Hill refers to the people buried there who died with their boots on. And the one in Tombstone, Arizona is perhaps the most recognizable one still visited by tourists today. Here at Magic Kingdom, guests can indulge in some target practice using a .54 caliber Hawkins Buffalo rifle replica. For anyone concerned about safety, don't worry. The rifles don't shoot any pellets or any type of projectiles. Instead, it uses laser beams to shoot the targets. And to play, you'll have to purchase your shots. I believe it cost about 50 cents for 25 shots. And here's a warning, you don't get any sort of prize for shooting a specific number of targets. But I guess you can still have some fun. Now, sticking to this town section of Frontierland, let's take a little tour through some shopping. This land surprisingly holds a few decent stores and a few hidden gems. For pin lovers, you'll want to make a stop at the Frontierland Trading Post. This shop is completely dedicated to Disney pins. If you attend one of the Halloween or Christmas parties, this is a good stop for party-exclusive pins as well. But further down the path and closer to Country Bears, we have the PRAIRIE Outpost, which I think is a little hidden gem. This store sells the standard lineup of Disney candy, something that can be found in other sections of the park, including Main Street. But to my surprise, I recently learned that there is a small bakery in here. I know that the confectionery store and the Big Top Treats have a wider selection, but if you're in the mood for something sweet and don't want to wait in long lines, this is a good stop to make. But all that shopping will work up an appetite, so let's look at some of the dining in Frontierland. Now I'll soon be posting my 5 must-have snacks in Frontierland that will detail the food offerings here a little bit more. But I can't overlook Pecos Bill. This is actually one of my favorite quick service locations in Magic Kingdom. Food in this park is a big hit and miss game, and I especially find myself frustrated to find a good quick service meal, because most of the locations don't offer the same amount of range as other parks. However, when in doubt, Pecos Bill Tall Tale Inn is a good choice when it comes to grabbing a quick bite. It features a large amount of seating like Cosmic Rays, but it has better food in my opinion. The dishes here are a theme park's interpretation of Tex-Mex. You've got fajitas, nachos, and a couple of burgers. So it's a place that will appeal to a lot of different members in your group. But the story here is connected with some classic Disney animation. You younger folks may not be familiar with this, but as the name of the establishment suggests, this is a cafe named after Pecos Bill, a character from a Disney animated short featured in Melody Time. But before the animated film, Pecos Bill was a fictional cowboy, part of a collection of short stories that include Paul Bunyan. But the 1948 animated short retells some of his stories, and a portrait of him can be seen over the fireplace in the ordering area of the restaurant, along with his famous lasso. Dotted around the restaurant are other portraits inspired by the film, such as one for Slewfoot Sue and Pecos' horse. But you'll also find some fictional artifacts inspired by other characters not mentioned in the film, but part of other stories of the Wild West, such as Annie Oakley and Davy Crockett. Like I said, I'll get into the details of the food here later, so let's move on to the land's table service option, the Diamond Horseshoe. Now technically, this restaurant is listed as being in Liberty Square, but given the theming of a Western saloon, I think you'll forgive my little cheat here. This restaurant was an opening day feature of the Magic Kingdom and featured a meal with a show. It was directly inspired by the infamous Golden Horseshoe REVUE in Disneyland. But over the years, this dining location has changed a lot. It was downgraded in the mid-1990s to a quick service location. Then in 2003, it became Goofy's Country Dancing Jamboree. That ended a few years back, and the restaurant became a seasonal offering. But recently, this dining location reopened, offering table service meals at lunch and dinner. At lunchtimes, you can order off of the a la carte menu or choose the all-you-can-eat option. Dinner is strictly a price-fixed buffet called the Saloon Feast, featuring a few salads, brisket, grilled chicken, pulled pork, corn on the cob, and everything else you would expect in a Western-style restaurant, and at a decent price as well. The all-you-can-eat option is priced at $36 for adults and $20 for kids. Now, I haven't eaten here since this offering began, but I can say this. If you're looking for this kind of meal with entertainment, I highly recommend the HOOP-DEE-DOO REVUE over at Fort Wilderness. You won't be disappointed. But finally, let's take a look at the attractions in this land. The rides in Frontierland are perfect for thrill seekers. I've already briefly mentioned Tony Baxter's input into Big Thunder, but let's take a look at the ride itself. Besides this being a classic mine train roller coaster, it has an incredibly detailed backstory as well, one that I'm sure a lot of you have overlooked. But that's okay, it's not your fault. It's not exactly laid out in front of you. The story goes a little something like this. Back in the late 1800s, some gold was found within Big Thunder Mountain. So prospectors hoping to get their hands on some gold poured in and created the nearby town called Tumbleweed. The mine trains were built for the prospectors to carry out the ore from the mountain. But little did the townspeople know that the mountain was cursed, and a flash flood came barreling through the area, destroying the town and the mine train. Now, some say the flood had nothing to do with the curse, but was man-made by a mysterious man named Professor Cumulus. If you have a quick eye, you may spot him right here, just after the second lift hill. Anyways, After that, the abandoned mine trains were said to start up again, all by themselves and without a crew. Now, the possessed trains race through the mountain, carrying tourists along for a wild ride. There are still remnants of the old town that can be clearly seen if you take a ride on the Disney World Railroad from Frontierland en route to Fantasyland. Here, you may see that flash flood mentioned earlier. On a practical note, this attraction does offer FastPass Plus, something I would recommend booking if you're looking for big thrills. In fact, if you're stuck between both mountains in Frontierland, I would recommend this one a little bit more often than not. Splash does have longer waits in the middle of the day in the hot summer months, but the wait for that attraction can fluctuate, especially in the morning and evening hours. Now, if you've used up fast passes on other attractions, this would be a great choice first thing in the morning if you're not headed to Seven Dwarfs at Rope Drop. And if you're looking for a quick ride on both mountains early in the morning, I would get on this one first since it's a shorter ride, then ride Splash afterwards. Now, there is a height restriction here, and guests must be at least 40 inches tall to ride. If you're using a wheelchair or ECV, you must be able to transfer out of those vehicles before you ride. If you've got a little one who's a first timer and a little bit intimidated, I would suggest you request sitting in the front row. There are no big drops on this coaster, and this is the least intense place to sit. I love Big Thunder. It's definitely a rite of passage attraction, and I remember it as the first roller coaster I ever got on. Next up, we're going to take a small break from the thrills and head on over to Grizzly Hall to watch the Country Bear Jamboree. This is the only opening day attraction in Frontierland still in operation. And Country Bears is one of those rare cases where we get a true Florida original. This is one of the select attractions that first premiered at Magic Kingdom instead of California. But Disney fans know that this show's history starts with Walt himself. Walt originally wanted to build a ski resort in California. He knew he wanted some form of entertainment at the resort, and he turned to Marc Davis to come up with some more ideas. In fact, the last day that Marc saw Walt was on the day where Walt visited Marc's office and laughed at some of the bear character designs. Davis distinctly remembers that after he approved of the designs, Walt walked out of the office and said goodbye, something he didn't say very often, and Marc noted it as an odd occurrence. This was later known to be the last words that Walt ever spoke to Davis just before he died a few days later. So it's no wonder that Davis saw to it that the Country Bear idea would live on despite the ski resort being scratched. A great tribute to Walt here in Florida. The Country Bear Jamboree is a 10-minute show featuring a fantastic cast of silly characters, from the Master of Ceremonies Henry to the adorable Sunbonnet Trio, and of course my favorite, Big Al. The show features 13 songs, some original written by Imagineer Xavier Atencio, and some classic country songs like the Ballad of Davy Crockett. If you are using a wheelchair or ECV, there is a dedicated row where you can sit and enjoy the performance. But just a quick note, the attraction's opening times vary from the park's operating hours. It's not uncommon for this attraction to close earlier than other attractions in the park, so always check the times guide. Finally, we're at the biggest highlight and my favorite ride in Frontierland, Splash Mountain. I love this ride because it's the perfect marriage of a thrill ride with a classic Disney dark ride. You've got great show scenes featuring dozens of characters and get the biggest thrill that the Magic Kingdom has to offer, in my opinion. And the attraction is another testament to Tony Baxter's great storytelling. Florida's version is very similar to the original Disneyland attraction, but the one notable difference here is that the ride vehicles seat two guests side by side, as opposed to single file. It is also said that you get less wet in the Florida version. But I think that thrilling drop and splashdown at the end is a very refreshing way to spend your afternoon in Frontierland. The story of the ride is simple, and guests travel alongside Brer Rabbit in his hopes to find the laughing place. Along the way, Brer Fox and Brer Bear try to catch the rabbit, and you are sent on a fun adventure escaping the two bad guys. In the end, you're sent plummeting down a 50-foot drop into the briar patch, just before you're welcomed home by a collection of singing critters. On a practical side, this is certainly worth a FastPass Plus reservation, especially in the summer months when the wait times can exceed an hour. Now, if you can't get a FastPass, I find that it is something that you can easily jump onto after the sun goes down. If you're worried about your things getting wet, Disney now supplies plastic bags sponsored by Ziploc, which you can use to stow away your cell phones and wallets. And at the end of the ride, you can recycle them into a small barrel by the on-ride photo display. There's definitely a height restriction here, and guests must be at least 40 inches tall to ride, just like Thunder across the way. And guests using an ECV or wheelchair must be able to transfer out of those chairs and into the ride vehicle to experience this. For me, this is the best thrill ride at the Magic Kingdom. Yes, I even like it more than Space Mountain. And it's one that everyone needs to experience at least once in their lifetime. And with that, my friends, we are at the end of today's episode, exploring Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed today's trip back in time to the Old West. Now, I've got a quick programming note for you. Next week, there will be no Sunday main show. It's my husband's birthday, and we'll be off celebrating for the weekend. But don't worry, plenty of videos will still go up over the next 2 weeks, including some adventures in Frontierland. And the Sunday main shows will return on October 14th, as I continue this series with exploring Liberty Square. Thank you so much for watching today, and until next time, remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.